Rick Tocchet speaks out on his current contract with the Canucks and how Yogi will impact the Canucks bench going into next season. And we get a huge update on the Nikita Zadorov contract and how it's making no progress and it's leading to his agent shutting down reporters on Twitter. We'll get into this later on this episode. Before I start, I just want to say thank you so much for helping us hit 2,500 subscribers. It's awesome to see. I know I say this a lot, but just shout out to you guys. It's awesome just to get on and see the channel growing, how much people enjoy the content. We're trying to reach our goal of 3,000 before the draft. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to go down to that subscribe button. We'll be all season long giving you updates from all around the Canucks. Well, with that, let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is Rick Tocchet speaks out on his contract. So we did get some reports and just kind of quotes from Rick Tocchet during his media availability yesterday. And he says, I'll be honest with you, we haven't talked. And he was explaining on his contract of part of the media availability. I have a great relationship with Patrick and Jim. I'm not worried about it. I'm really honestly focused on next year. Those things will take care of themselves down the road. When there's the time to talk, we'll talk. It's really about me getting myself ready, recharging my batteries, and getting ready for the upcoming season. There were a few more quotes, and Tocchet also did speak on how these playoffs just kind of mess with him. He sits down in bed some night and just kind of thinks of what ifs going into the game against the Oilers and so on. But when you look at Rick Tocchet, he's been nothing short of a miracle for the Vancouver Canucks. We see him taking over for part of the season. They weren't in the playoffs, going 20-12 before taking over the full season as the Canucks head coach, going 50-23, winning the Jack Adams, bringing the Canucks into the second round, something they haven't done for quite some time, and getting Rick Tocchet back, in my opinion, is going to be quite big and something that a lot of Canucks fans want. And Griffin, what's your thoughts on him not being signed yet? I understand that, yes, there is some time. He still has next season, and there is a team option that the Canucks can pick up. But are you worried at all that he's not signed and they're not having talks yet?
Not too worried exactly. I think, like you said, he's still got one more year. He's coming off of the Jack Adams. So having that year coming off of that and going into next season where he's going to be open to being signed in the next season, I think that's going to be more interesting where if he tries to build off of that, maybe he bumps up his contract potential as well. I think it's also in a position where he can build off of that and also not have to make it about the himself and make it about the players, making sure those key guys stay as a part of this team where if there's a possibility that he's not there after his contract is up, at least that core group can stay together when the next person takes over. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully he's able to stay there and continue this tenure and make it a era instead of just a tenure. And I think if there is a Rick Tocchet era, I think he's going to be focused on keeping that core group together as well. And it's great that he is a former player, and you can definitely feel that where he is what a true competitor is. He's keeping himself up at night, thinking about the Edmonton losses, all the what ifs. A real competitor hates to lose more than they love winning. You can definitely feel that with Tocchet, and it's definitely emanated through the players like JT Miller, especially where when they lose, he takes all the onus on himself. I think that's them just taking on the identity of their coach. And I think that's an identity that this team is going to carry into next season, and just it's just going to keep on building and building. And I think him not being worried is also just a contract. It could also be a contract move as well, like I said, where he's going into next season where if he has a great season, his contract potential is huge for the following season rather than getting locked in now when he's just got Jack Adams off his first season. Where can it go from here, really?
Yeah, and the big thing is obviously the Canucks have 9, 10, 11 free agents. So I'm sure at this moment, having him locked up for just next season as well, they're not too worried about that and they're focusing on that as well. But the big thing is we also get some more quotes about Yogi. This was coming from Rick Tocchet himself. He also said Yogi would be a big chunk of running the power play. The Canucks struggled with the power play and the man advantage, obviously going into the Edmonton series and what felt like a good portion of last year. I like the ways he's come up with some new ideas. I see workability with the Millsy, Huggy, Petey, Lindholm. They trust him. I think that's important. And a big reason why I put this in, and a lot of you might have kind of skipped over a miss, that he just kind of says Lindholm's name, obviously a free agent. So maybe he's hinting towards Lindholm coming back. Maybe they're working with Lindholm to just kind of inject him into this offense once again if he gets signed. But obviously getting Yogi on this power play is going to be a big change. And what's your thoughts on Yogi taking it over, Griffin?
I like that he's taken over there. It's definitely a power play that needs some revitalization, needs some new life. And I think Yogi's going to bring that, especially if Tocchet is already speaking highly of him, especially too if they are hopeful on bringing Lindholm back, who he is a very key component of that power play. And that power play is a unit where they might not have to touch too much of it. It was very solid last year in certain moments. It did dwindle toward the end of the year, like you said, and in the playoffs, where it definitely cost us games where we had opportunities to really take control of the game and the series against Edmonton, where the power play just didn't show up. And if he's working with Lindholm and they're already hopeful on bringing him back, I think this power play is going to stay a consistent unit as far as the people involved on that first and second unit. And if there's consistency, hopefully there's productivity as a result of it.
And the big thing with Yogi is even like Tocchet himself said was the players trust him. This is a guy that's been in the Canucks organization. Him getting promoted is big for him, for the team, and for the players. It seems like everyone loves him. But what's your guys' thoughts on Tocchet not being signed? What's your thoughts on Yogi taking over the power play? Let us know down in the comments. With that, let's hop straight into the second topic, which is not as fun. Zadorov contract making no progress. Now, obviously, I want to give a shout out to Dan Murphy. I'm sure everyone's seen this on Twitter. Just the negotiations to get Z to stay. You can see him, you can see JT Miller having a couple beers on the golf course. But we do get a tweet today from a Sportsnet reporter just talking about how Zadorov and Lindholm have been making progress, attraction picking up, everything like this. And then you see Dan Milstein, Zadorov's agent, shut it down and say fake news. Now, we do go into a quote from Donnie and Dolly's podcast. I've been texting with Milstein all week, Donnie. He said there's no progress, which has been reporting for a long time. No offers, no conversations about contracts since the playoffs ended. No talks in a while. The Canucks have not met with Milstein in Buffalo. That surprises me at the Combine. So just, Griffin, what's your thoughts on right now Milstein, Donnie, and Dolly just coming out and saying that there's been no contract talks with Zadorov since the playoffs have ended?
Well, it was nice to see that there was no fake news being spread around. You always like to see when that can get debunked, whether that truth is something that you want to hear or don't want to hear. In this case, it was something Canucks fans didn't exactly want to hear. You would want to hear that there is optimism and there is progress on signing him. But at least it wasn't going to be a rumor that was just carried on into just being one of these fake news headlines. But now that they has put it to rest, it does bring some worry for Canucks fans. You know, with that Dan Murphy tweet, it seemed optimistic at first, and then now with this and then making no progress. We know that they haven't been talking since the playoffs. It is very shocking that there's no conversations at the Combine. Usually in every sport, draft combines is when the deals are all happening. You have all the owners, all the GMs, all the scouting coaches, all the coaches, all within the same building and in the same city, all mingling and talking and trying to make deals happen. It's very shocking that none of the Zadorov stuff is happening there. It would like to see something happen before July 1st and he tests the market and it just becomes open season. But again, Zadorov is asking the world, it seems, so that's going to be very hard for the Canucks to do, especially with Elias Lindholm, who they seem to be more hopeful on bringing him back because, it's nice to see Zadorov hitting the links with JT Miller, but Lindholm, it seems like, is on the ice. There's a big difference in both of those, so I think that kind of can speak for itself potentially, but we'll all see how it folds out on July 1st potentially.
Yeah, because the big thing is, and I'm sure everyone agrees with this, Zadorov has been outstanding for the Canucks. In the playoffs, he was incredible, is the best way to put it. In 13 games, 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points. And when you kind of look down on the bottom, he spent 3 years with the Colorado Avalanche. He only put up 8 points in 33 playoff games, 12 games with the Calgary Flames in the playoffs. He put up 3 points. And you see in just one playoff run with the Canucks, 4 goals, matching how many goals he scored in 33 games with the Avalanche. 4 assists, matching once again how many put up in 33 games with Avalanche. 8 total points. He was a wrecking ball, putting up 45 hits, 18 blocks. So there is, and I see a lot of comments of people talking about recency bias. Yes, there is, but this guy is someone that can change the momentum. We've seen him go into the box for whatever he did, charging, hitting, tripping, whatever it might be. He comes out, lays a huge hit. We've seen it happen with Ryan McDonough. Turns the tables, pumps the crowd up, gets the players going. He is a complete game changer in the playoffs. And Griffin, I'm just gonna ask you this: if he's looking at a 6x6, are you willing to give this to Zadorov?
I think as far as recency bias goes, absolutely. You would want to back up the Brinks truck for him. But when you're looking at his overall numbers, can he continue that productivity and that efficiency? who knows? That's the gamble in signing a guy. We saw them take that. We see them taking that gamble currently with Elias Pettersson, where they're hoping that this season he can follow up on that big extension. It would be big for Zadorov to get that. I think he definitely proved that he could be worthy of something like that. Not only just on the score sheet, but like you said, as far as just a momentum shifter and that just presence on the ice where he can ruffle feathers. He's very nonchalant. He's very laid back. Nothing affects him. So I think having that presence on the ice is big just from a team morale standpoint and from a crowd standpoint. So when you're investing in him, you're investing in that as well, instead and as well as the things on the score sheet. But again, we said before, he seems to be asking the world, will the Canucks be able to make that happen? We don't know. There's so many things that they have to do where a monumental contract doesn't seem to be in the cards. If anything, it would be a bunch of short-term contracts, I would think, to try and get a cup before all these contracts expire, especially with the next year contracts and the ones 2 years after that. So you want to catch a cup, capture a Stanley Cup while your window is still open rather than as it's closing. And right now, it's busted wide open for Vancouver, I think, going into next year if they can play it smart. So if they play a lot of like short-term deals or maybe back-ended deals and keep the front end smaller, I think that might be how Vancouver can navigate this difficult free agency season.
And the big thing is, you're looking at this team that has about 23 million cap space. They have about 9+ guys that need to be signed. Another thing to look at when you're looking at this kind of contracts as well is OEL's buyout is $2.4 million against the cap next year. Then it raises to about 4.7, so that's a $2 million increase for buying out OEL just a couple of seasons ago. So the Canucks are going to have their backs against the cap wall, which it seems like every team is at the moment, so they're not alone. But it's going to get quite interesting on who gets signed and who fan favorites have to be shipped out due to this. But what's your guys' thoughts on all this? What's your thoughts on Milstein shutting down reports of detraction, picking up, calling it fake news? What's your thoughts on Donnie and Dolly saying that there is no contract talks at all since the playoffs ended? Let us know down in the comments. And speaking of comments, we'll get into everyone's favorite topic, comment of the day. And the comment of the day comes from Troy Sims. He says, saw in Jordan Greenway in free agency, and I kind of agree with Jordan Greenway being a good pickup. He kind of reminds me of a Dakota Joshua, but with more of a resume behind him in the sense of more productive seasons. So if a guy like Joshua walks, if you free up some cap space, or if Greenway's looking for a change of scenery, I do think he'd be a good pickup. We will be doing a video on our top free agent pickups and our top trade targets, so keep an eye out for that. But what's your guys' thoughts on everything we covered? Leave a comment down below. You could be featured on the next episode as comment of the day. While you're down there, leave a like, share this with your friends, subscribe. We're trying to hit 3,000 before the draft, so make sure to go down and do that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Griffin. Take care.